Welcome to episode 72 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on December 15th, 2021. Today, I'm very happy to bring you a follow-up interview with Nic Corrigan and Ed Sutcliff from Project Lonk. There have been quite a few developments beyond the creation of the wool itself, so let's get started so you can hear about them. First, many thanks to Jennifer, Carolyn, and Candice, who became patrons of the podcast since the last episode. Patrons help defray the costs of running the podcast and receive some benefits in return. If you would like to help support the podcast, hop over to patreon.com/I Thought I Knew How to see what those benefits are. And many thanks to Knit New Haven and Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast this week. Knit New Haven is posting gift ideas for knitters on their Instagram account in the lead up to Christmas. Hop over to knitnewhaven.com to check those out. And be sure to pop into the Morehouse Merino Flock group for a supportive online learning community for any project you are working on, not just the monthly Knit Along project. Find the links for those sponsors in the show notes. Those of you who have been with the podcast since last season will remember my interview with Nic Corrigan and Ed Sutcliff about their Kickstarter for Project Lonk. Ed raises Lonk sheep, which are a rare breed raised in the Pennine Mountains of the north of England. And Nic is a knitwear designer who was looking for a source of locally produced wool for her designs. They were able to connect online, and with the help of Dr. Zoe Fletcher, who has her PhD in the study of sheep and wools raised in the UK, they embarked on a mission together to produce wool from Ed's rare breed sheep for use by fiber crafters. If you have not heard that interview, I suggest that you pause this episode and go back to episode 66 titled Project Lonk, and then come back to this follow-up episode. In that first episode, we talked about their goals with Project Lonk and how they all came together. And since the fundraising closed, they have been busy seeing to the production of the yarn and are now in the thick of fulfilling the rewards for their backers. I was so impressed to hear about their future plans and to learn about the wider impact this project has had on the wool production community in the UK. Do listen to the very end for some really impressive changes on the way. And now, without further ado, here's my conversation with Nic and Ed of Project Lonk. So I'm back again with Nic Corrigan and Ed Sutcliff of Project Lonk. Thank you again for meeting with me and telling me about the progress. I am really curious about, first of all, what the response was like. I already know the answer to this one. But I want to hear you guys talk about what the response was like to the Kickstarter.
Okay. It was absolutely mind-blowing. I can't remember exactly where in the campaign we talked to you, but it was nearer the beginning than the end, I think. So by the time we spoke to you last time, we'd reached our target, so we knew that. And we were just amazed that we'd done it so quickly. But then it kept going and kept going and kept going.
We had to be really careful, didn't we? Because we were going to run out of wool that we could offer people.
Yeah, that's when I had to keep going back to the spreadsheets all the time, going, I think we can afford to sell 1 more kilo. I think we can do that. So yeah, it became a bit of number crunching rather than, we started the project thinking, like, Ed was super cautious. He was like, I don't know if we're going to get £5,000, maybe we should just make it lower just so that we, get a bit of money. And so we persuaded him to say, I think it's 6,700 was our initial target. So we hit that within 48 hours. And I think by the time we talked to you, we comfortably gone over that, but we ended up with just over 25,000 pounds UK.
You almost quadrupled it.
Yeah, exactly. Which meant we could get all the Lonk process, but it also meant we could add in the second breed, which was the Whiteface Woodland, which is Laura, Ed's wife, is her kind of breed. So we managed to get both of them done. So we ended up sending to the wool mill just about 450 kilos of fleece in total. Which they, at the beginning of the journey, they told us 100 kilos was the minimum, and we were a bit like, oh, that's going to be quite, that's a lot to commit to. We ended up sending 450 kilos, and now we've got it all back. I was just doing some calculations today. I think we pre-sold about 90% of everything that we've got back.
That's amazing.
Absolutely blown away. And it was just the generosity of everyone's messages and spirit and support as well. It wasn't just the money and just the figures, which obviously made it doable. But it was the goodwill that came with it as well.
Yeah, and people really got behind what, our story, what we were trying to do. And it was really nice. And
particularly for Ed and Laura, when, a lot of the stories about farming these days are very negative, and about how difficult it is, and, all the problems that are associated with it, and what you should do and what you shouldn't do. To actually have really positive feedback from end users as well was just really nice. So yeah, it's left us with a lovely feeling. It's great.
Yeah, it was really nice. And I think that's been like a potential barrier for, farmers, getting their wool done, because obviously it was how much a kilo was it?
What, to get it produced?
To get it produced.
It ends up coming in about 35 to 40 pounds a kilo.
And the minimum they'll take is 100 kilos.
Yeah.
So obviously it's, if we were just, how the Kickstarter works, obviously, we got that money. So we knew the money was there. We knew we could get it spun. If we'd have done it without the Kickstarter, what a gamble that would have been.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what sort of potentially, other farmers find it hard.
Yeah.
To sort of commit to that.
Yeah, well, exactly. And you don't know how it's going to do that first year. You have no idea how.
No.
Yeah.
And we seriously thought we were going to end up with cupboards and cupboards full of yarn that we, that we will be selling for the next decade, bringing it out again. And it's been the opposite problem, because one of the reasons the whole project started was I wanted wool to design and knit with that was as helpful to me as possible. And I think on the Lonk, if I'm lucky, I might have one cone of each left to knit with this year round, because everything else is gone. So yeah, it's a nice problem to have. So
yes.
Yeah, very pleased with how it went.
It's good news for me. It means I can get more sheep. I've got an extra to get more sheep.
Exactly.
That's excellent. So I want to back up just a little bit and talk about the different stretch goals that you had and that you were able to reach. I know you mentioned the Whiteface Woodland, and I want to hold on to that for just a second, because I know you also offered some botanically dyed yarn as well along the way.
So we added that as an add-on. So we've got a lovely lady who lives about 12 miles down the road who does botanical dyeing and had done some practicing for us. So we added sets that would have 3 different colours in them of each of the 4-ply, the DK for the Lonk and the Whiteface Woodland. But we had to keep those really quite limited quantity, just because she's doing it for the first time. By that point, we knew that we were going to have to be a bit cautious on our quantities, because we didn't know how much we were going to end up with as well. So that all sold out as soon as those add-ons went on. So that's definitely something for next year that we want to try and plan further ahead for that, because I can't remember, it was literally a matter of hours to a day when all of those went. So in fact, before we were talking to you today, I was just trying to add up the quantities, because I've got to post it all out to her today to get dyed up. So that'll be going out early in the new year. So we had that as an add-on. The Whiteface Woodland we'll come back to. We've also committed to doing a book about the project. Oh. So yeah, we already had a videographer and photographer working with us free of charge. They were doing it just as out of their support for our project. They were documenting the whole journey. So they've been with us since last summer, and they're going to go through until lambing next year, going through all of the stages. So we have a book coming out that will be interviews with all the different people involved, the wool mill, the farmers, the designers, and it's also going to have knitting patterns in it as well.
Wonderful.
So we've got some hand knit designers. I'm working on a machine knit pattern for it. We've got an Irish crocheter who's doing a crochet pattern for us. So that was another add-on.
Just rolling it back to the naturally dyed stuff. What was really quite nice as well, we're using the plants that we're obviously using, they all grow on our farm.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, and a lot of the plants that Ed calls weeds.
Yeah, she sent me a list and she's like, do these grow on your farm? We're like docks, thistles, nettles,
brambles.
And I was like, yeah, they do, but they're all the weeds. We don't want them to grow.
You're like, please come take as much as you want. They're all yours.
Yeah. But one of the things we're looking at, obviously we've got lots of plans for next year now. One of the things we're looking at is maybe getting some community groups to grow plants for us specifically. So things like woad that can be grown on spare land that can then be used to dye the fibre. So that's another plan for the future.
That's a great idea. And that's one of the points of doing this project specifically is that it's all done
exactly
within like a 30-mile drive. All of the steps take part, which is fantastic.
So if we can have the plant, so at the minute Saz, who's dying, is 12 miles from us.
She's at Saddleworth.
It's still within the 30-mile radius, but it's a bit of back and forth. If we can actually have the plants here as well, then that would be super local.
Yeah. Well, Ed, I am hoping that you can tell us some more about the Whiteface Woodland, because I know they're your wives' animals, but I'm sure you guys talk about them.
So a bit of a brief history about the Whiteface Woodlands is they're from sort of like West Yorkshire, South Yorkshire area. So if you find Penistone on a map, around Penistone and Holmfirth, that's where they originally come from. They even used to be called the Penistone sheep.
Okay.
So they're again local to the South Pennines. We kind of ended up with them by accident, really, because at the time, Laura, she used to help her best friend showing cattle, and then obviously she was from York. So then she moved over to me, and sadly her best friend's dad died as well. Mm-hmm. So obviously they don't have the cattle anymore. So she was just wanting something to do in her own right, really. So she was like, couldn't decide on breed. I said, why don't get a few sheep, a bit of an hobby for you, and we could show them and things like that. So we didn't know sort of what breed to go with. And then a friend of mine ended up with 2 Whiteface Woodlands. So we were chatting about them, and I said to Laura, I said, why don't we go have a look at them? So I went to have a look at them, and we caught the bug. So we started off with 2. And now we've ended up with about 60 pedigree Whiteface Woodlands. And then, we show them a bit. Obviously, we haven't been sort of with COVID and stuff, but we show them.
And they're rare.
They're another rare breed. Yeah, they're quite rare, actually. So again, if you go, they are a bit more spread out now. They're classed as a rare breed because a few more people's heard of them and taking them to different areas, but they're still. Pretty rare, to be honest.
But in terms of their fleece, they have a lot of similarities to the Lonk. So Zoe, the other partner in our project, who is the PhD doctor in sheep and all
the woolist. Yep.
Who's analysed them all under microscopes and everything. In terms of the length of the staples and the crimp and all of that kind of thing, is quite similar to Lonk. And we obviously live in the same conditions.
So we obviously graze the Lonks on the moorlands, but we graze the Whiteface Woodlands on some National Trust land, which is designated triple SI for waxcap mushrooms, and it's one of the most important sites within Europe for waxcaps mushrooms, the amount of species that are on it. There's like 22 different species of waxcap mushrooms, which are in decline worldwide.
Do the sheep eat the mushrooms?
I don't know. They might do.
I'm curious how the sheep work within that.
And the wax caps are only found on pasture land that is grazed by animals. So the wax caps need the sheep, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
So in terms of the difference in the yarn, though, because we obviously haven't seen the Whiteface Woodland at this stage in yarn form. So until we picked it up this Friday, we weren't 100% sure how similar it was going to be to the Lonk. But actually, it's quite noticeably different. You can put the two next to each other without any labels on, and you can tell which is which. Mm-hmm. And the Lonk has come out is much whiter, and it's got kind of...
The Woodlands white.
I thought the Woodland was creamier.
Yeah.
The Lonk has got the flecks of grey in it.
Right.
So whereas the Woodland is like a creamier, yellower colour. And to the hand feels softer. We're still experimenting with knitting swatches because we only picked it up, like I say, on Friday afternoon. It's Wednesday today, and we've obviously been busy packing orders. But the very first thing I did when it was arrived was nip up to my knitting machine, unwind one of the cones, put it on the machine, knit a swatch, put it in the wash, got it out, and it knitted beautifully, the coned yarn, which was great. So now I'm just itching to get actually knitting a proper garment in it to get the kind of the final feel. But yeah, so being able to add in the second breed was fantastic. To think that, we were unsure whether we'd even be able to do the Lonk yarn, and to have ended up with 2 breeds and 90% of it sold is very reassuring.
That's amazing. Yeah. I actually have one of each here. I have some Lonk here, and I have some Whiteface Woodland, and these actually came to me as part of the British Yarn Explorers Advent calendar, Advent yarn box. So the Lonk is actually from you, Nic. That she said she sourced it from you, from Whitehall Studios.
Okay.
Alice Late of Late Night Knit. She's another podcaster. Okay. And then the Whiteface Woodland came from Halifax Spinning Mill, I guess, so different source for that. But yeah, like as you say, they are noticeably different. I mean, these two are, whoops, I just dropped it. These two, they're both, natural white. Mm-hmm. But the Whiteface Woodland has more of a sheen. I don't know if I would. Yeah, the Lonk is like a fluffier look to it,
a drier look to it in a way.
Yeah. So it's, I just love learning about and seeing all the different types of wools.
You didn't know you were going to get those 2 breeds in your advent
calendar. I didn't at all. So Lonk was day 5, and I got all excited when I opened it, and because this is what we're doing with all of this is we're opening our advent yarns together. Okay. And I opened it and saw it was Lonk and was like, oh my gosh, it's Lonk. And then I went on this whole big thing about Project Lonk. And then I opened up the little info sheet that came with it. And I was like, it's actual Project Lonk yarn.
Oh, wow.
So that was super exciting.
What I found really interesting is, obviously we used to send our wool to the wool board. Mm-hmm. And they actually, the Whiteface Woodland and the Lonk wool, they class them all as the same grade. They all go into the same bin, effectively. They class that as the same. And what's quite interesting, because obviously I shear all the sheep. Obviously, when I shear the sheep, you can't the raw fleeces, they look very similar. You can't tell the difference. But then obviously we've got it back from the mill, and I was just amazed.
How different!
Yeah,
I can't believe how different they are. I can't believe it.
Even for a novice like me, that's I'm not a knitter or anything like that. But just to look at it and to feel it, just how different they were, and I just expected them to be very similar, but they're just not. They're totally different.
No, they're very different, and this is. I think when people start learning about wool, they don't realize how deep the rabbit hole goes,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you mentioned that you've sold 90% of the Lonk wool. What's the situation with the Whiteface Woodland? How is that holding out?
Well, no, we've sold 90% overall. So we've sold pretty much 100% of the Lonk, apart from any little bits that I can kind of keep.
Right, yeah.
We literally are talking about like 100 gram skein here or one cone there. The Whiteface Woodland, we will have about 20 odd kilos left at the end of it. But we picked up from the mill on Friday just over 200 kilos, and all we will be left with is 20 kilos of Whiteface Woodland at the end.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So are you going to hold on to that for yourself, or are you going to?
I have been quite protective of that now, because no, anything we do have left will be going on the website, but I certainly will be keeping a few cones, because the whole point of the project was that I wanted to knit some garments in local yarn. So I probably need a good, I'd like to say 5 kilos for myself. We'll see. I might have to fight Ed for it.
So you have, you exceeded your fundraising goals, like to an amazing degree. Has that now set you up so that you are confident moving forward? Next year's clip is going to go be processed, and
definitely confident, because obviously we feel like there's a market there for sure, and we feel like we've got all the lovely support and messages we've had from people as well, and financially, hopefully as well. We're kind of now working ahead of ourselves, because we have paid obviously for all of, so in fact I paid the bill with the yarn mill this week, so that's all paid and settled, and we will have balance in the bank enough just about for next year's spin already. A little bit short, but not too much short. So if you think of the position Ed was saying, that we thought we might start off having to take a gamble and just put £5,000 in and get some spun and not know whether it was going to sell. We are hoping that what we will do now is open pre-orders for next year's clip in about April time. Take pre-orders from April through to August, so that by the time we've sheared, we know again that we're confident we've got everything there to pay. So we're always basically working a year ahead.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's a really kind of reassuring position, particularly for Ed and Laura to be in. And it's a nice feeling as well that when Ed's doing all that shearing, that weeks and weeks of all that hard work, it's actually going somewhere.
Right.
Yeah, it's been a great experience, obviously, for me and Laura. Just actually feeling like it's valued by someone, instead of just like, just it being, because previously it was just a complete nuisance, to be honest. It was like we had to shear them for the welfare of the animal, and that was it. Yeah. But now, like, we're doing it, and there's a purpose behind it, and that's really nice.
Right. Yeah. What has the response been like in the local community there? Are there other
really good
producers who are thinking of following in your footsteps, maybe?
We got a lot of press coverage at the time. So obviously all the local media, we were in most of the papers and a lot of the local lifestyle magazines. And within Heptonstall itself, so the small village that we live in, it got massive support there, and it's a very strong community where we live, so it very much fits in with the ethos of people living around here who want to support local businesses and that kind of thing. But it's this idea, as well as the money that we're using is all kind of going into the local economy as well. So not only is it supporting Ed and Laura, it supports all the other small businesses as well. So we've been posting out all the orders from Heptonstall Post Office, which is a tiny, I don't even know how many people live in Heptonstall, but it's only a couple of thousand people maybe. But we've got our own post office, which was under fear of closure. So the community are just in the process of buying it out at the moment, and it'll become a community run post office. but we have committed to always sending our orders out through the post office. It would be cheaper for us to go to Hermes or someone and book them all in. Hermes come and pick them up from my door. Great, and they go off and we get a cheaper rate. But we're very conscious of every penny that we spend going to support businesses that we want to support in the region as well. So the spinning mill that we're using employs 30 people, so that we know by putting our money there that that's 30 jobs we're helping to support, and all those kind of things. And so the local community have really kind of have got into that side of the story as well. So it's not only the people who are interested in knitting and yarn, it's the people who are just interested in supporting local economy and businesses as well.
Right.
So we're giving a talk tomorrow, aren't we?
Yeah, we're on a bit of a publicity tour this week, but yeah, tomorrow night we're talking to a group of farmers.
Yeah, it's like a local group for obviously the local farmers, and they've invited us to give a talk tomorrow evening, just about what we've done and obviously adding value to wool and stuff. So that'll be quite interesting.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Hopefully a few more will follow your footsteps.
We would like to be able to include other farms within our project.
I think that's potentially the next step in it, obviously, is seeing, if we can work with other farmers to provide, more sort of breed specific wool.
Right.
I think that's the next step.
One of the big messages we got from people as part of it is that the traceability of the yarn is one of the really key things. The fact that we can say exactly which farm it came from, exactly which farmers, exactly which sheep, has been important to people. So that's always going to be really important to us. So even if other farms are coming on board, they're going to be farms that we visited and we know and that we can work with.
They're going to be like obviously hand selected few that obviously meet our ethos as well.
But the good thing is, in the area we live, there's so many sheep farmers around here that I don't think we're going to have a problem. I imagine after tomorrow night's talk, it might be more the opposite, that they might all want us to take all their fleeces.
Yeah. Are there many more different breeds that are represented there in your area, or is it mostly?
So a friend of mine, so like in the South Pennines area, traditionally there was 3 breeds: the Lonk, the Woodland, and Derbyshire Gritstones. So a friend of mine who is willing to work with us has got Derbyshire Gritstones. So we're potentially, if everything works out, then
are they rare breeds?
Yeah, they're another rare breed as well. They're another rare breed, and so potentially we're definitely going to include Derbyshire Gritstones next year that we can offer.
Wonderful.
And he also has Dorset Horn sheep as well, which are another rare breed.
Right.
So potentially there's 2 more breeds that we could offer next year, and he only lives how far is Todmorden?
4 miles.
4 miles away. And he was the best man at my wedding as well. So
but those, I mean, when Ed's talking about South Pennines being an area, I mean, it's a very small geographical area, especially in American terms. It's very small. Yeah. I mean, you might be talking 100-mile radius really for that area. And certainly in other parts of the country, they definitely won't have heard of Lonks.
No. Once you leave the South Pennines area, I mean, now they have been sort of classed as rare breeds. There's like the Rare Breed Survival Trust, which try, promote these breeds to effectively stop them dying out, because some of them are like super rare, like nearly panda status, you know what I mean? That's how rare some of these breeds are. So they've done quite a bit of work of promoting some of the rare breeds. So, they have become a bit more widespread, because obviously smallholders who are interested in having a few sheep are interested in, potentially having a few of these rare breeds. But even then, you're talking small, they might have 5 ewes and stuff like that. So like, still the numbers, they're a little bit more spread out because of that. but still the numbers are really small. The heartlands still are like where they originate from. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So our other challenge really is scale of project now going forward and scalability, because obviously we've sold everything we could pretty much this year, which is great. What's the next step for that? Because one of the beauties of this project is the smallness of it, and the fact that, you know, we're dealing with everything ourselves, and we know everything, and we're in control of everything. But the costs and that side of it, obviously the yarn mill are saying to us, well, if you can double your quantities next year, you'll get a much better price. And it's striking that balance, because the whole reason we've done this is because we don't believe in mass production. So you don't want to go too far down that line. But having said that, even doubling our quantities is nothing like mass production. Wool producers.
I think it depends on the demand, though. You know, if obviously the demand's there and people want access to the wool, then, you know, we are really, you know, we want to be a part of people being able to access, you know, that wool. It's got a nice story behind it that's been farmed properly, and you know
what you're getting.
You know what you're getting. Everything about it. That, you know, if we can facilitate that moving forward, that would be great.
Yeah, and the benefit in avoiding mass production is in large part avoiding the carbon footprint from the shipping miles, you know. And so even if you guys go 4 or 5 times larger than you are able to do now, if it's all coming from that area and being processed in that area, even if the company grows, you still have that major benefit of it all happening right there.
Absolutely.
That was one of the things, like one of my personal goals, like creating this project with Nic, was to showcase that sheep farming can actually benefit the environment. You know, it's not all bad. You know, we're not damaging the environment. We're part of the solution. You know, we're not the problem. And through this project, I feel like we have been able to showcase that. And obviously moving forward, that's another, you know, if we are going to potentially work with other farmers and bring them on board, then they're going to have to meet those standards. We're not just going to include anyone. They're going to have to, if they're farming sustainably and regeneratively, then, you know, we want those people on board.
Do you have any advice for anyone listening to this who might be wanting to take this step themselves, who, you know, want to produce a local product?
I would say that the big win for us is that we had people with specialist knowledge in each of the different areas, i.e. the starting point with the sheep, but also the end point with the knitting. And so because I already ran a knitting community, I kind of was in touch with end users, whereas obviously Ed was knew all about the breeding and that side of things. So what helped us massively was having that combination of knowledge. So depending on, you know, who was wanting to do it, if they didn't have one of those, I would say try to find yourself somebody local to you who can kind of help you with the other side. Because, you know, at the start, Ed was really, really skeptical that people were going to want to knit with, you know, 100% long yarn. And I was like, I'm fairly sure there's people out there, from what I know, who are asking for it. But as a farmer, he would never have known that. And likewise, until I met him, I would have never have known where to access all of that stuff from. So definitely trying to get the full journey, get knowledge of the full journey would help. And I think working collaboratively as well. I think that's one of the things that I was really keen on, is to move away from fashion industry generally is so murky and so, we can't share our details with you because you're going to go and use the same factory as us and you're going to rip us off and you're going to get it cheaper and nick our customers and blah, 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 blah. And I just don't agree with that way of working at all. And I think it's far more, especially when we've got the problems we've got, that we've as a race that we've got to solve, working together has got to be the best way to find the solutions. And so, that's why another one of the things for the project is that we really want to share our experience and knowledge and help educate people. And so anybody is welcome to contact us if they are thinking of going down the same journey, they've got questions. And I think by working together, it's going to become far easier for people. That's what we're hoping, that we put in the legwork now, we can pass that information on to people. It makes it just that little bit easier and that little bit easier each time for other people to be able to do the same thing. So I would say trying to find other like-minded people who you can work alongside or share information with is another way to go. And we have a fairly new here, but a local fibre shed here in the northwest of England, which is obviously a US concept in the first place. And if any of your US listeners were wanting to do it and they had a fibre shed local to them, then that would be a great starting point probably to connect with other people who would already have some of that knowledge. But I think some of it as well, I think possibly the not knowing what we were doing some of the time has got us to where we are, because I think if someone had told us a year ago, all right, well, you're going to be ordering this much yarn from the mill and you're going to have to do this and you're going to have to ship 420 orders, we'd have gone like, well, I'm not sure I'm ready for that yet, let's just wait. But we kind of got into it before we knew the full extent of it.
Once we were committed. So we had to learn as we've gone along in some respects.
So but we have been very lucky with the people we've worked with as well, and also we were extremely lucky to have a really good yarn mill so close to us, and not many people will be in that fortunate position in the UK, in the US, but anything you can do to make it more local than it currently is got to be a better thing.
Yeah, that's an improvement for sure. So you've mentioned already some of your plans for the future. It sounds very exciting. I'm looking forward to watching everything grow with Project Lonk and see how it develops. Is there anything else that you want to share that maybe you didn't mention yet, or do you want to just
contact from the wool board?
Oh yeah, so obviously we've had obviously you mentioned the impact locally that this project's had, but it's quite interesting already. We've created a bit of a ripple effect in the wider sort of woolen industry, because we got invited to campaign for wool. Yeah, the campaign for wool, hosted an event.
So they run Wool Week every year, although that's turned into Wool Month. But
it's a month now. Yeah.
So I think you'd contacted them on Instagram. Hadn't you?
So obviously when we started off Project Lonk, we wanted to spread the message of what we were trying to do, just to let people know what we were doing. So I messaged them through Instagram. I said, look, this is what we're doing. We're obviously promoting wool, British wool. Can you help us out? And lo and behold, they messaged me back and they actually shared it via their social media platforms, which was really nice of them. And then they obviously found out what we were doing and saw like how successful it had been. So they invited us along to this event, didn't they? Where there was other people within, obviously the
it was kind
British
of a woolen industry campaign launch.
Okay.
I think Ed and Laura were the only farmers there. It was all kind of industry professionals and that kind of thing.
But that was really nice, wasn't it? Yeah.
But when we started off talking to you last episode, we talked about the price of wool and how that was the cause of so much of the problems, and the fact that it all went to the wool board and then they were only paying 20 pence per fleece or whatever it was, and that was what was called the initial cause of the problems. So we were trying to find a way of not using the wool board. So Laura got home from work halfway through the Kickstarter campaign. Laura got home from work and there was a letter from the wool board addressed to her and Ed, and she was like, oh no, is this going to be them kind of telling us off for what we're doing? Because officially you're meant to send all your fleeces to them. Anyway, she opened it and it was a letter from their CEO inviting us for a meeting because they were so impressed with our campaign and they wanted to know what they could learn from it.
They picked up the story through the campaign for wool because they work together quite closely. So they picked up the story from them.
Back in October, we went to the wool board. We met their CEO. He gave us a tour of everything, and we had a very, very frank discussion about the problems in the industry. And I mean, in one way, it was very reassuring because he's fairly new to the job. He's been there 5 or 6 months, and he's come from a non-wool background originally. So he's looking at ways of kind of modernizing things there, and obviously realizing that they possibly need to change some of their approach or look for new markets. So that's one of the areas we were talking to them about. But we're looking at ways next year of maybe how we can work together to still retain our independence and small scale, but use some of their infrastructure to help us with some of the cost sides of it.
Yeah, so like obviously one of the issue is we've talked about how localized some of the breeds can be.
Right.
So we live in the South Pennines, so it's quite easy to sort of access, you know, the Lonk, the Woodland, the Derbyshire Gritstone because we live in that area. So potentially, sort of moving forward, if we want to work with more farmers and offer more breed-specific wool, then, you know, there's different every area of the UK has its own breed of sheep. So, for example, down in Devon, there's about 3 or 4 different breeds of Devon close wool, Exmoor, Horns, I can't just remember the names of them, but and then, you know, in a different county, like Lincolnshire, that's got Lincolnshire long wools. Then like Oxford's got the Oxford Downs. So like every area in the UK has got its own unique breed. So hopefully by working with the wool board, we can sort of have, you know, they can help us access those breeds.
But crucially, they can, rather at the moment, they take in all the Lonk, all the Whiteface, it all gets graded together as one grade, and you lose the traceability. What they have told us that we can do is we can select the farms that we want to work with. When those farms deliver to the wool board, those are set to one side and come to us so that we can be assured that we know exactly where all of our fleece is coming from. But then crucially, their graders, who are obviously the best in the world at grading fleeces and picking out the best fleeces, can grade them for us so that we get the best of the best, but also fully traceable as well. And then what will happen is those farmers will be paid a premium because their yarn is coming, their fleeces are coming to us, and it's not being sold on the open market in the auctions. So basically, we'll be selecting the best from the farms that we know about and want to work with.
Right.
We'll have a better quality wool, and those farmers will be paid more, and we'll still have full traceability. So that's our long-term goal.
We're a few years off. But that's the long-term goal.
But the fact that this campaign has got us to that, we would never have got through. Ed and Laura would never have got through the door to meet the CEO of the wool. As two farmers on their own.
Like, that's another reason why we started this project was one. Obviously, I've said about the environmental impact of sheep. That was one of them, and another one was, you know, let's see if it's doable. Let's see if we can make money from wool. And once we've done that, now let's try and affect the wider industry. You know, why does it only have to be me that's seen the benefit from this? Let's try and have a positive impact on the wider woolen industry to try and, you know, move it forward.
Is one of the things the wool board said to us is that they have no direct contact with the end user. They are the starting point, and that's what they're recognizing, that's their downfall, because they're selling it on the auction to people who are buying it for carpets because they're the only people they know.
Yes.
Southern, we're like, well, no, there's these people here and there's these people here. And
so what was quite interesting, when they showed us round, they showed us the auction room, and they had a picture hung up in the auction room, and it was like from Victorian times, and it was like, what was it called? Like British and Commonwealth Wool Market. And it was a little auction ring, and you should have seen how many buyers were on there. Hundreds of people. around this ring buying wool. They have 10 registered buyers now. 10. And 2 of them take between 80 to 90% of it.
Wow.
So you can understand why the prices have gone the way they are, because if you're in a fortune situation.
Well, and if you're only valuing the wool based on the micron count, then you're losing all the other characteristics of the wool, the distinct wools, and what makes them special and applicable for different things. Yeah. You guys can't see this because this is an audio podcast, but Nic and Ed are talking about these things. And I'm like, it's like blowing my mind. Like, these are the changes I've been wanting to hear from the British Wool Board on how they handle things, because there are so many different breeds there with brilliant uses, and it all just gets sort of thrown in a few piles.
So there's like 72 breeds, pure breeds within the UK, plus like all the crossbreeds, and nobody's valuing that.
But that I think was the exciting thing, that they have they just don't do it at the moment. They have the ability to split it out if there's the market there for it. And I think hopefully what we're making them realise is, yes, there is a market there for it. So that's exciting as well.
This is amazing and incredible. Well done. Like,
it all started. It's thanks to the people that's got behind this campaign. To be honest, and
people like you.
We can't say thank you enough, because a year ago, this, before we started Project Lonk, this would have never have happened. And it's only because we've had so much support that things like this are actually happening now, and we can have a positive impact within the industry, which is what people wanted. This is why they got behind, what we were trying to do.
And I think it's in terms of the whole debates people are having about climate crisis and everything at the moment, and everyone's feeling quite doom and gloom. Well, that's the impression I get. What difference can I make? I think this hopefully is a good story that shows people actually you can make it. The difference has to start from us, really. And people, the bigger companies aren't going to start listening until they hear from the grassroots that that's what people want, and then that's kind of how you build the movement, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's why I thank you for taking these steps that you've taken and taking the risk. And even, Kickstarter helps mitigate some of the risk, but it's still a risk of time and effort and energy to get the Kickstarter started. And then I hope people understand that's not the end of it. Like, there's so much work that still has to happen, once the Kickstarter funds come in, and you guys are the ones who are putting all that work into play to get this rolling. And look at the amazing effect that you guys have had. That's just absolutely astounding. Like, I'm so impressed. Like, I was impressed before, but all the wool board stuff, I'm like, oh, you guys are good job. Like, good job. I'm so happy to hear that.
It's been personally like one of the hardest things I have ever done, but it has been the greatest experience of my life doing this. We've learned so much from it, and just the response that we've had has been like incredible as well. So don't regret it for a minute.
Wonderful. Well, I know all the information's still up on Kickstarter, but that's going to eventually get outdated or not be. How should people be following your progress and buying what's left?
So moving forward, obviously, we started off and called it Project Lonk because it was a project and it was based around the Lonk sheet. We didn't know how it was going to go. So obviously, moving forward, if we're wanting to obviously work with other farmers and incorporate other breeds, then we felt like it was a bit, can we really call it Project Lonk when it's not about like the Lonk sheet as much anymore? So we've come up with the name Wool Circle, which we think sort of incorporates what we're trying to do. Obviously, bring it full circle, from the farmer to the end user. We have an Instagram page, that we've set up that we're just going to start using now, and obviously the website.
And we've got a website which is woolcircle.uk, and that's up and running already. Currently, there's some stock of the totes and tea towels on there. We will be, once we've got all our orders shipped, which we are hoping will be in the next, we're up to about 50% shipped. We started on Sunday. It's Wednesday, we're 50% shipped. So we're hoping in the next week or two, we'll be 100% shipped on all of that. And then anything that's left will go on the website. But like I say, there's not going to be heaps of it. But there will be the odd bits of yarn and that kind of thing going on there. And then we will be opening up pre-orders for next year on that in the spring of next year. But we've got a blog on there that we keep updated with what's happening, and that's probably the best way for people to follow our story going forward.
Excellent. Nic and Ed, thank you again so much for your time and for doing this, and for coming and talking to my listeners about it. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. Thank you for all your help promoting it as well.
It all started, I just wanted to sell Nic 10 fleeces.
Yeah,
that's how it all started.
Yeah, look what happened.
Thanks again to Nic and Ed for taking the time to share how Project Lonk grew legs over the last few months. It's been quite a ride for all involved. As you heard, they are shifting the name to be Wool Circle to be more inclusive of all the growth and development on the way. I'll have links to their website and social media accounts in the show notes for you. A few more things before I go. First, remember that the Yarn Stash D-Stash is coming up on December 26th and will run to January 8th. It's a step-by-step guide to loving your stash again as we enter the new year. I'll be posting the daily tasks on my Instagram account, I Thought I Knew How, so be sure to be following me there for those updates. Our next episode won't be until the new year, so I would like to offer my thanks for your support of this little project of mine through this last year. Merry Christmas to those who will be celebrating, and my wish for all of us is for a calmer, kinder new year ahead in 2022, full of good health, good friends, and good wool. I'll talk to you again in the new year. In the meantime, thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/IThoughtIKnewHow to make a monthly pledge. You may also consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors by visiting the website IThoughtIKnewHow.com and clicking the link at the top that says Be a Booster. While you're on the site, you can also find the show notes for each episode. Thank you ever so much to my patrons, to Knit New Haven, and to Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.